feel like I had something else on there. I can't remember. Per usual. We're back. We're back,
And
baby.
now we're back. Hello and welcome to Frequency Broads. I'm Tara.
And I am Victoria. And we are so happy you're here. We have missed you. Welcome back from spring break 2023.
Woohoo!
Did you have a fun time, Tara?
A fun time relaxing. I just needed
Mm.
time to kind of settle in. I got sick a little bit. I'm coming off of that, but it was a lot of, as much as spring is reborn and like movement, it was a lot of just like, okay, rest, take it slow. So it was nice. What about you?
A little bit of the same. I've had way too many people ask me if I've cleaned out my closet yet.
And the answer is
Like slightly.
okay. Hey, progress is progress.
Progress is progress. I'm thinking about it in my mind. And I think pre planning what I'm going to rip out off the hanger and like put into a bag to go elsewhere is a pretty good step. I'm like mentally detaching from these things that I thought I would hold on to forever that are like four sizes too small. So,
Oh, I know that game way too much. But I think that plays to the fact that like you said last time, right? These things hold energy. So instead of trying to rip them out of your life, you're feeling them. You're taking it easy. And I think that's beautiful. And you've inspired me to do the same. When I did my spring cleaning, I was like, it is time.
it's such a good feeling. You know, it's interesting. I moved to the Pacific Northwest with just a suitcase, a giant purple suitcase.
Wow.
That's all I had. And I was thinking, if I were to leave and just pack everything I own into a suitcase, what would I take with me? And I think the hardest thing for me to give up and that I would really have to sit and think about are my books. I love my books
Mm-hmm.
so much.
I
So,
agree with you on that one. As we will be referencing two of my new favorite books anyway. So we're right on the same page.
one of which is definitely packed in my bag by me at all times.
Mm-hmm.
So, today we're actually going to mix things up a little bit. And, I just want to keep things spicy with y'all. We're just
Mm-hmm.
going to ground through one breath, inhaling through the nose and suspending at the top for 3 seconds. And then exhaling through your mouth, all of that stagnant energy, preparing for our topic today, which is on intimacy, baby.
Mm-mm-mm.
We've been waiting a long time for this one.
This was definitely one of the topics when we sat down and first thought about frequency broads. I know you were like, we need to talk about this. And you have so much knowledge when it comes to this topic. And it's something that I have been struggling with for so long. So I am so ready to hear your knowledge and share my story about it as well.
Thank you. Yeah, I'm excited to hear your story. We're in very different places in our relationship realms. Tara's been with her partner for 6 years now. They just celebrated an anniversary over
Mm-hmm.
spring break, so happy anniversary.
Thank you.
And I've been celibate for what feels like eternity. And I am sinking deeper into this sensation of kind of recycling my sexual energy, finding places for it to move and groove inside my body that it maybe wouldn't have consciously moved into otherwise. And I've really shed past lovers, partners, and I'm feeling lighter and freer. And like
Mm.
I am making space in my womb, in my second chakra, even my first chakra, these kind of stabilizing, energetic forces that are making me feel way more grounded than I've ever felt in my life. I'm a very airy, spacey person. I'm very heart centered, but oh my gosh, I am such an airhead. Uh, funny enough, the first time I met Tara, which it's almost our 1-year anniversary.
It almost is.
I We were at a sound bath and I asked the instructor to turn off the lights and it was a skylight. So
And that's how I knew. I was like, I gotta hang out with this chick.
I mean the room was kind of in this weird basement, so it didn't make sense for there to be a skylight. So
I'll give you that. It was strange.
thank you.
And for a second I was like, yeah, the light. And then I went, wait, no.
Oops. So I'm curious, Tara, what does intimacy mean to you?
Whew. Well, I have actually struggled with truly, truly being intimate for a very long time. So when I knew this concept was coming up, I have to say I procrastinated a little bit because I was like, I don't even know. And I really needed to sit with myself and figure that out. So I wrote it down. Intimacy for me is having trust in myself and in the situation, whether that be with another person or in the space, to open myself up fully, to allow myself to be vulnerable so I can fully feel into the experience of connecting and bring in pleasure and just kind of really respecting and observing the divinity in all things. So, even stepping out of intimacy in the bedroom, just intimacy in general, being able to be vulnerable, trusting, and open to all of this energy exchange that I'm experiencing.
Mm. Mm.
And what about you, Miss Victoria?
At this stage in my celibacy, because I feel like I'm very anchored into containing all of my primal sexual energy, I feel like my ability to find the simple delights in anything I experience through my senses, all 9 of them. I don't know, it feels like there are more than 5. They're like the 5 we know and then the Clairs, but
So that's at least 10.
10, yeah, we'll round up. I feel like you kinda summed it all up, and it just really brings to light the things that have limited me from experiencing intimacy, and, to sum it all up, I feel like intimacy means being vulnerable and open,
Hmm.
and it's often associated with the big fear of being rejected, and, you know, it has me asking, what if I'm rejected for who I really am? And what if, when I truly open up, who I am is not enough? This concept of not being enough has been something that's been ingrained in me all my life. And it's something I've consciously unraveled. And I have to say, I feel enough. I am most definitely enough. And I'm so much enough at this point that I am too much. So now I'm dealing with the experience of people reading my energy as being too much, which is
Hmm.
an interesting balance of the scales to kind of sway to the other side. But at the same time, I know who is for me will see me as enough. There will be no question. There will be no thought of any of this enough stuff. But I know that it's something that's deeply ingrained in all of us through societal programming, through shame, fear, guilt. And those 3 things, shame, fear, and guilt, are, I think, the 3 primary things limiting us from connecting with our intimate selves.
Absolutely.
Deep breath, big sigh.
I know for me, it was not being enough that stopped me from being intimate my entire life. I had many, many sexual partners throughout my life. And I realized that I was always rushing to the end, avoiding eye contact, trying to rush through it and not actually being present in the moment because I was so shameful of my body, so shameful of the way I might sound or look or smell or taste or whatever, that it stopped me from experiencing a lot during those times where I was just like, "You know what? Let me just pleasure you because that takes all the fear of not being enough away from me because then it's just focus on you." It really pulled me away from intimacy. And even till this day, I have to remind myself to be present, to not worry about what angle my body is being in, where my face is sitting in this space, and just exist within the intimacy of being with someone else. And you're 100% right that it's societal programming. Every commercial, every ad, every television or song that we hear is about how someone looks. Oh, your hair isn't straight enough. Your teeth aren't white enough. You're not thick enough. You're not thin enough. You're not boobalicious enough. It's all about that not enough. And they try to give you these quick fixes, and we're always looking externally for the enough, right? This consumer mindset of needing excess. I need more. I need to be more. I need to have more. So it's finding the mindfulness of, even in pleasure moments, enough sex, enough of, we've mentioned taking drugs as a medicine. Like, what is enough in that? And when can you step back and reflect on that? What does being enough feel like? What does receiving enough love feel like to you? These are the concepts that you need to explore to really embody that being enough.
Oh my God, Tara, you're so right about societal programming and the too thick, too fat, too whatever, too this, to that. And excess is such a huge component of ways in which people try to fill the void. And so you kind of sway between this feeling completely empty and deprived and looking for something to fill this space within you. But excess, the result of excess from what I've witnessed is numbness. And so we see so many people thinking that porn is what is actually happening in most bedrooms, that intimacy looks like what we see in porn, and it's not at all. So far from it. But the idea of, the numbness, I see that in a lot of men my age, and I'm really grateful to have amazing men in my life who know when it's time to take a break from the porn and tune into themselves, because what's the point if you're not feeling anything?
Yes. Right? We're always chasing this euphoria. We're trying to always have this pleasurable moment. But like you said, right? It's sometimes taking the pause to say, wow, what did bring me pleasure in that? What was the intimate connection that I had with this person or thing? And what doesn't bring me pleasure and ignite this intimacy in me, right? That pause, knowing that we can't always be in that euphoric moment, allows us to learn more about ourselves to say, I'm changing and I'm growing, and what I need and how I connect through intimacy, it might change. And I think this idea of, you mentioned porn. Yeah, right? That's not what happens in the bedroom because it's lacking the intimacy. It's lacking the connection. And something that I've been really thinking about is how society has taught us that sex is about performance. How well you are, what poses you can get into, how flexible you are, right? But that's not it. When we think of it the mindset of performance, we're here to get to the end. I'm just here to get my rocks off. And that is where shame and guilt start to bubble up inside us because we're lacking the love and intimacy. And I don't mean deep relationship love. I love Victoria. I love my fucking cats. I love my plants. There is love in so many different capacities. Like Victoria said, not reserving your love, but if you're not having that connection, that moment of intimacy, exchange of energy, and you're just going there to get your rocks off, which is, listen, I've been there. I'm with you. But you're right, Victoria. It leads to numbness. It leads to shame and guilt. And these are the reasons why these things become taboo because it's filtered with shame and guilt and trauma. But when we can step back and say, hold on, let me find the intimacy, the connection here, and let me understand what is enough. I don't need excess. Can we then dive a little bit deeper?
We can and we shall. Let's do it.
Mm-hmm.
Because it's about the journey, not the destination, baby. And I think also to your point,
Yes.
the point of sex is not to orgasm, period.
Sadly, that took me a long time to figure out.
Well, and it takes us a really long time as young women to even have orgasms because there are multiple types of orgasms we can have.
Mm-hmm.
And so to get to that point of fully surrendering and feeling safe in the presence of our partner, I think for the longest time, you can't feel safe if you're thinking about how you look in certain positions and if your hair is right or if you're moaning in a way that sounds like a porn star would moan. Mm-mm.
Mm-hmm.
Well, I have 3 things you can do to heal the fear of intimacy and create fulfilling love.
Mm.
Shall we begin with 1?
Yes, please.
Stop putting the responsibility to love you onto others. Let me read that again.
Ooh, please.
Stop putting the responsibility to love you onto others.
I love the way you say that because we hear a lot, you can't love others until you love yourself. And I feel like when we hear a saying over and over, we become desensitized to it. And we're like, yeah, 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 I love myself. But say that, I'm sorry, say that one more time, please.
Stop putting the responsibility to love you onto others.
Mm,
And it really, it forces you to take a long, hard look on how you treat yourself because people are going to treat you how you treat yourself.
mm-hmm,
Are you respecting yourself by what you put in your body or on your body or near your body, even in your mind as well? What are you consuming to fuel your heart, your hope?
and I think when we dive a little bit deeper into how we treat ourselves and how we need to love ourselves, that's the key to communicating how others can love us. So if we're leaving that as an empty space, if we're not accessing that information about ourselves, we're always going to feel unsatisfied because we don't know what we need. So being able to tap in and understand your traumas, understand the shame, understand the guilt, accept them, and learn to tend to that and find love and gratitude for yourself is the way to then create intimacy between others because that's being intimate with yourself. Right? If we're saying intimacy is trusting and vulnerability and openness and connection, you can do that with yourself.
And one thing you've mentioned in the past, maybe today, it's been a long day, is making eye contact with yourself in the mirror. And I think
Mhm.
that's sometimes where a lot of the magic in like people who go to the gym and connect with themselves like through weightlifting, it's because you have to at least observe your form.
Mhm.
But if you take the time, and maybe this is part of your meditation, your moving meditation practice, to look yourself in the eyes, and you'll find there are some days it is really hard to do so. And other days you look deep, deep in your eyes and you remind yourself of who you are and how powerful you are and all that you embody and all that you bring to this world. but you can't make deep, loving eye contact with your partner unless you make it with yourself.
Victoria, I think you mentioned in another episode about locking eyes with strangers and how that shares information. So just by locking eyes with yourself, you're allowing yourself to tune in to what you're feeling, what you need. And like Victoria said, it's not always easy. I remember the first time I started this, the practice was just to simply look into my eyes and say, I love you.
Mm.
And when I did it the first time, that was the first time I truly felt how much I was lying to myself. And I looked at myself, I said, I love you. And then immediately after, I was like, no, I don't. And it really made me sit with myself because in that moment, I fucking didn't. I didn't love myself. I had so much shame of not being enough. And it took years of mirror gazing to finally look at myself. And now it's like looking straight to my inner child. I look into
Mm.
my eyes and we're like, like sticking our tongue out, making weird faces, rolling around on the floor because I connect so quickly to her because she's my essence, she's my innocence, she's my creative spark and she's where a lot of my trauma is held. So I'm able to access her or my shadow or my higher self or my entire being just by looking into my own eyes. And I've mentioned this to Victoria that when it comes to sex, making eye contact is an amazing way to really embody that intimacy because you are locking into that other person. You are sharing energy, connecting your souls. And even now, that's still difficult for me sometimes because it truly, no matter how long me and my partner have been practicing 5-minute eyes gazing to each other, when it's in the act of sex and intimacy, being so vulnerable, and then opening my eyes, not like, weirdly, but like opening my eyes to look in his eyes, I see both of us like resisting, not because we don't love each other and want to be intimate, but it requires so much vulnerability. So, as we say with everything, be compassionate with yourself and have patience because these things are challenging and they arise with some trauma and guilt and shame that comes with being vulnerable.
Oh, it's a process for sure. So, you ready for step number 2?
Ooh, I'm ready. If it's as good as number one, I'm ready.
It's good, but this is part of the process, baby. Get
Mm,
intimate with your emotional world. Listen to your emotions and take
mm,
them freaking seriously. Taking responsibility for your emotions looks like not placing blame or shame on anyone for how you feel. And this is kind of a tricky one because people do influence our emotions, right?
mhm,
But how much power we give to them and how we regulate our emotional responses says a lot to how much you've played in this realm of getting to know your emotions.
mm. And I think, yes, like you said, people do affect our emotions greatly. But when we can reframe it in our minds to not, this person did this, but I feel a lack of love, right? Not this person isn't showing me love, but I feel a lack of love. Then it reframes your mind to say, well, what am I capable of giving myself? And then what can I communicate to the other to say, well, this is what I'm needing in this moment? And I know this isn't necessarily related to intimacy, but something that I've been really teaching my students and working with Andrew a lot as a way of being responsible for our emotions and not using blaming is being mindful of using the words always and never. When when you use blaming words like you always or you never, that person is immediately going to think of all the times that they did or didn't. And it doesn't allow for your actual emotion to sit in that presence. So you could say, in this moment, I feel blank. And you can add because of this situation, because of when you said that. But it's taking responsibility for yourself and using the I statements.
I've never thought about the use of always and never, and that's something else that's really ingrained in the way that we all communicate, and it's kind of slang at this point,
Mhm. Mhm.
like a filler word, like, or or
Mhm.
it's just added for dramatic effect.
And it's crazy because once you're cognizant of that, you recognize how often you use those words, even in lightheartedness and not just blaming, right? Like, I always listen to that. It's like, hold on, back up. Notice when those times come up. If it feels like always, then is that a state that you're in more times than other? That's okay. But it's really interesting how often we use always and never.
Yeah, the use of always is sort of this unrealistic commitment to the same outcome or the same experience. And we know that's not possible.
I agree. And similarly with never, right? It's locking in that you cannot change and shift your experiences. So using those terms always and never is not allowing for cycles, for things to flow and be free, right? Being intimate is openness, vulnerability, freedom. So if you're using things like always and never, you're not allowing yourself to have that freedom of movement in your state of consciousness, in your emotion, in your relationships. It locks you in, and then that's where numbness comes
Mhm.
because it's the excess. You may not be actually experiencing always, but if you're telling yourself it's always or it's never, then you're in this state of excess as opposed to being in the state of enough.
Mm. And when you feel enough, you are present.
Mhm.
So, getting intimate with your emotional world takes being able to communicate your feelings.
Mm.
I think when you learn to communicate your emotions, you're then also able to communicate what it is that you desire from your significant other or your friend or your colleague. It doesn't have to be just sex, even though we'll get to the point where we're just talking about sex. We got to
Mhm.
build upon it because intimacy encompasses every form of relationship that we have. And it's so important to acknowledge that we all desire connection. We all deserve and would benefit from being in community of like-minded people.
Mm.
But I am a firm believer that sex can be a means to developing a deeper relationship with yourself. And when you approach it from a place of observation while simultaneously experiencing all of the sensations, you're able to kind of tune in to what it is that's working for you and what's not, and express through your moans, through your facial expressions, through your words, what it is that you want more of or less of. And I think when you're in that open, vulnerable space in front of your significant other, it is good practice to carry forth that style of communication of asking for what you want and need. And when it comes to your non negotiables. And so that brings me to the third point: get clear on your non negotiable needs and develop the self confidence to back yourself up and ensure that you are getting exactly what you're asking for.
Ooh, yes. Yes. I think that when we talk about intimacy, right, you talked about it's not just with your partner, it's with all relationships. And I think it even goes a little bit more if we really explore it into all the connective energy. That means, like you said, the food you eat, the things you surround yourself with. If you get to that intimacy level with everything around you, you can start to figure out what gives you that yes, that powerful, fully from the root yes. But as Victoria said, having the boundaries and self confidence to know when it is a no. When you speak your truth and land in a no, it creates space for more yes, for that fully embodied, pleasure, intimate yes. But you cannot do that without discerning what doesn't suit you and being clear in that boundary and saying no.
Ah, I love that so much, Tara. I just heard a quote today and I'm trying to piecemeal it together, but it was by Napoleon Hill. Um, and I could see how this could be controversial because I think it assumes that you are putting all your eggs in one basket. But he said something to the effect of burn all bridges that don't lead directly to your heart's desire.
Mm, I love that.
It's like clearing out your closet and getting rid of all of these old, right?
Like you said last time, right? Those energetic cords. Out of here. Which, talking about where you got some inspiration, shout out to my friend Emma who got me this book. I am so grateful for it because I said to her, my New Year's resolution was to find more pleasure.
Mm.
So she bought me this book, Pleasure Activist: The Politics of Feeling Good. And it really goes into society's programming, and it's a beautiful book because it's a compilation of many different people and their writing styles of essays or poems, and it comes from the space of a queer black woman identifying person who is really talking about how do we dive into pleasure and intimacy and finding the yes in maybe not monogamous, maybe open relationships or polyamorous or celibacy, she talks about as well. So I will link this in the description as well because this is a great book to figure out how we can start to deprogram those not enough space that we've been living in to feel enough, not need access, stand in our nose so we can embody the yes.
Mm, I love that so much. And I'm a firm believer that the deeper you go on this healing journey, the more you realize how precious your energy is. And you
Mm,
become more and more and more selective with who you share your energy with. And as you become more selective, the potency of your medicine begins to fill every cell of your body and part of your embodiment. And the gift that you offer to this world is this potent medicine. Be selective, baby. Be selective because
mm,
those imprints, which we'll dig into in a moment here, part of the reason why I am celibate because I wanted to clear all imprints of past lovers and really feel who I am, not who I am with all of these imprints. Or if,
mm.
I am acknowledging these imprints, who I am with these imprints integrated into who I am. And the stronger my sense of self, my confidence, my self-esteem, my essence, those imprints, they don't mean shit.
Mhm. Absolutely. Exploring your sexuality is exploring your medicine, right? That Kundalini energy, that is your medicine. And with the programming that we have been instilled, it has become taboo because they want to keep us powerless. And when you tap into that Kundalini, when you tap into that sexuality in all parts of your life, it becomes a conversation in all aspects of your life. You are sharing your medicine with the world. And that's what we're here
Mhm.
to do.
Ah, yes. And you know what else? I feel like through this whole experience of celibacy, it's made space for the memory of who I am and who I'm here to become to come into my body.
Mm.
N- No pun intended, but there could be. But it really took me being in the here and now and feeling all the sensations and realizing that this is my reality. This is what I'm choosing for myself, and
Mhm.
kind of in alignment with this strange world that's turning into artificial intelligence and kind of this quest to keep emotional intelligence alive in humans on our end. That's our doing, and love, feeling strong in the collective. We have to have a strong sense of who we are. Our characters have to be in their utmost power. No, because that is why. I feel like this is an episode where we're just going to be whipping out all of our resources because there are just so many good ones. And so I want
Mm.
to give a shout out to Inner Camp. I'm taking their Tantra teacher training course. So I will officially be a Tantra teacher in June of this year. And I'm very
Yay!
excited. Thank you. Yes. I'm stoked to share this medicine. But something that came through in the curriculum was this quote. And I just feel like it sums up all of those points that we just made on, how to heal the fear of intimacy. Intimacy with others becomes less scary when you start taking responsibility for your feelings and for your heart. You
Mm.
can't control if people stay or go, but you can learn how to take care of yourself in a relationship so if they do leave, you are not left broken and empty. I have to confess, this week is actually on the 5th of April, will be 4 years since the end of my last relationship. And that relationship broke me into a million pieces. And had I had this wisdom, had I had this perspective and this sense of self, I'm not sure it would have destroyed me like it did. But I think the
Mm.
whole point of that relationship was to utterly break me into a million pieces so I could find myself and be who I am here today, which I'm so proud of and so happy with who I am because of that experience. So, in the relationships episode, I know it really did. I confessed how much of myself and how much of my power I gave away, which is typical in an empathic, narcissistic relationship. But here I am today, thriving, loving myself, sexually frustrated here and there, but all worth it.
I'm so happy that you feel that way and you're not holding on to those hard moments that we go through and you can look at them with gratitude.
Thank you.
So, as Victoria said, we are always using all of our resources. And I shared one that I've been reading, and here's another one that we may have mentioned in the past. Earth, the Pleiadian Keys to the Living Library. Amazing book that covers so many different concepts. Shout out to Victoria for getting this for my birthday. Wow, so many good books for my birthday. I love it. Um, but there's a chapter about intimacy and sex, and specifically how, like I mentioned, we have been taught not to utilize this power because it is our most potent medicine, our strongest power. And when we're having sex with someone else, one partner, multiple partners, what have you, I want to read something that they share about that interconnectedness of sharing energy. And prior to this, they talk about how when we're intimate and we are with a sexual partner that we could be vulnerable with, that we are literally exchanging our energetic blueprints, tapping into each other's chakras, and really exchanging energetic blueprints. So it says, when you and another individual achieve the heightened state of electromagnetic force, you pull one another and create a balance between each other. When you get really good at this, you will not even have to touch each other. You can create this web of love between you, and it is enough through this force field that your inner bodies rise and go into other worlds. So be selective about how you want your body to be pleased. Give yourself permission to discover pleasure, talk about it, and to feel it. And I think that's something that, because it's been so taboo, we've been told to not even talk about it. And like Victoria was saying, it's so important to communicate what you require to be enough, to feel enough, what you need in these intimate moments, because it is this core sexuality is this core power of creation and connectedness. So if you allow yourself to tap into that with a person that you can trust the situation, trust this person to be vulnerable and open up your energy portals to exchange information, you're accessing your own medicine and someone else's. So be mindful of who you're choosing to do this with. And that's why sometimes we're left with shame and guilt as well, because we're, like Victoria said, getting hooked in, getting all these connections from people that maybe aren't serving us well. So understand that, yes, in this moment of liberation through sexuality where we want to explore, that's okay. I'm not saying that you need to be in a committed relationship, but just be mindful of the connection you have with this person. And even if it is, oh, I met you and we're probably only going to have sex once, is this someone that is bringing you pleasure? Is this someone that is lighting you up? Even in this one moment, right? Because those are the people that we want to allow ourselves to open up in an intimate way.
Whew. I think even beyond the shame and guilt or that feeling of, oh, I shouldn't have done that. I should have followed my intuition and kind of going in alignment with the idea of hooks. I think, it's important to note that we live in a world of fragmentation. And
Mm.
so we are leaving these pieces of ourselves with these partners that may not even know how to cherish and hold these pieces of ourselves tenderly and lovingly and with respect and in the highest regard that it deserves. Fragmented energy is, I think, part of the reason why soul retrievals are a huge thing right now, especially because we're all kind of trying to figure out who are we, but then also where are the parts of ourselves where we've given our power away. And I think I
Mm.
had some resistance back in the time I can't even remember what episode that was that we were talking about soul retrievals, but I felt like there's a part of me that didn't even want any of those pieces to come back to me because that's not even who I am now. But it's important to acknowledge for future reference the fragments that you leave behind. And what if we intentionally leave these fragments like gifts?
I love the idea of, through our intimacy, leaving gifts. If sexuality is our medicine, leave that gift and be able to tap into the gifts that have been left inside you. I love that.
Mhm. What's your view on fragmentation?
I think my view is pretty aligned with yours. I do believe that we're in this state of trying to collect all pieces of us. I think that in order to recognize and celebrate our growth, that when I do my soul retrieval, I ask that it becomes filtered before receiving coming back to my body, right? So whether it be filtered through my own aura of love first, or filtered through the earth first, or the cosmos, wherever I want to filter it through that feels right with my intuition in the moment, to
Mhm.
say, I need to take all of these pieces back to me because they are pieces of me. And I need to be able to accept them and love them and say thank you for this growth. I know part of being sick for me recently is always a time of reflection. And what came through a lot this time was all of my past relationships and how I would, like you said, you would not be the person you are if you didn't break into those million of pieces. I would not be the person I am if I didn't have those relationships. I would not be in the healthy relationship that I am now if I was not constantly, not constantly, but often looking at who I was and how I responded to those ways and what didn't serve me and what did, so I can communicate them in this relationship now. I mean, talk about intimacy and exchanging. I was pregnant, and that still is a hook inside me. That energetic cord is still attached to me. And not just because of that person, but because of the experience all around it. And I think there's a part of me that held shame and guilt in that. And because I've collected that back and said, no, 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 no. This isn't something to be shameful for. It was true for what I needed in the moment. It was the best choice I could have made, especially in the relationship I was in. And it now allows me to get deeper in my own sexuality to say, okay, well, what? Because those were the times where I was just getting it to get it, even in a relationship because I wasn't ready to be intimate. And that's what made it so difficult. But it allows me to look at these fragments of myself that felt shameful and find gratitude and love for them.
Mm. And it sounds like you were able to develop a deep level of respect for your body, your time, your everything about you through these experiences.
Absolutely. Especially that was a really hard one for me because my whole life I've like wanted children and there's always been the thing over my head that would be I wouldn't be able to have them because my mother's side goes through menopause at 30.
Wow.
Um yeah, so it was really fearful for me and to be 24 and say I'm going to make this choice, right? There was the attachment to the outcome I was trying to break, the outcome of needing to be a mother. I am a mother. I'm a mother to myself, to my relationships, to my students, to my pets. And if one day I am gifted with the chance to be a mother of my own creation, of birthing something into this world that is a human, unlike the birthing of my projects, then I'll be grateful. But I also know that I embody that now.
Mm.
And I don't think I could have ever detached myself from the outcome until I said to myself, this is a no. I'm setting a boundary. And right now, this is a no. And although I'm scared that I'll never access this again, I need to trust my intuition and follow myself.
Mm. Oh, yes. Yes, yes, yes. Connection really begins to look differently at this stage because you are leading your life by resonance.
Mm.
And it's really one of our greatest tools of discernment.
And I think something to just continue quoting all the books in front of me
Quote,
right now,
quote, yeah.
something from Pleasure Activism that she wrote that really speaks to that experience I had is the deepest pleasures come from riding the line between commitment and detachment. Commit yourself fully to the process, the journey, to bringing the best you can bring, and detach yourself from ego and outcome.
Easier said than done.
Oh, absolutely. It's taken years.
I'm kind of stuck on that detaching yourself from your ego because I think there's this really sticky space where to be confident and to have this like deep sense of self esteem requires our ego. Our ego is sort of this like how I view it is this fuel for our confidence. And having gone through many ego deaths, I've realized that an integrated ego looks like self love.
Hmm.
And I've also noticed in my own patterns is that I tend to gravitate towards men who are very confident and who I can kind of energetically feed off of their egos. And so I look for more of an integrated ego to feed off of because we know damn well men are coming into our lives to feed off of our sexual energy because we are these healers, we are these portals, we are these creatrixes. And the way that the energy exchange happens between a man and myself has often felt unfair, imbalanced. And so I've started to look at all of the ways that I can take energetically from the man I'm with,
Mm.
knowingly or not. At this point, I would openly admit to what I'm energetically taking. And I think it's important to start that conversation of what do you feel like you're taking from me? because it's
Mm,
okay if there's consent.
mm, absolutely. And I like what you said about the integrated ego because you're right. Ego is a part of us and it's not something we want to fully detach from. But I think for myself, I have gone through a lot of ego deaths as well. Um, and I can now recognize where like self love and confidence comes. And I'm like, yep. And then that step higher where ego comes, where ego wants me to diminish others to feel powerful as opposed to just feeling powerful within myself, right? So I could feel confident and I could feel like this. And then the second I slip into, but I need to take in order to feel powerful, then I recognize that's my ego and I could say, yeah, it's okay, buddy. We got it though. We're good enough. There's that enough, right? I don't need the excess of others. I am good enough. So I like that integrated ego being self love.
Damn, I forgot that that was something that the ego likes to do is to diminish the light of others.
Hmm.
Ooh.
And it made me laugh when you said that you would find men who have this strong ego to kind of not take from, but, access. And how I'm the complete opposite. And I've always been this like super high ego person who always was attracted to people who had no confidence. And I think that's because in myself, I knew I needed to take a step down and meet in the middle somewhere. Give them some of my fucking ego because they got none and I got way too much. So take it. So we can find this happy balance of just having self love, creating intimacy to share the gifts and love that we have for each other.
And that is some alchemy of intimacy is understanding the exchange that's taking place and the yin to your yang, right?
Hmm.
That part of you that you look for in others that you don't have in yourself. Super important, especially in twin flame or soulmate type relationships where you are so similar in a lot of the same ways, right? Values, personality, looks, like everything. But there is always something that they're going to teach you, they're going to show you, they're going to fill the void of what's missing in you.
Hmm.
Mm, good stuff.
And that's why it's important to be mindful of who you're having these sexual interactions with because you are exchanging this stuff. And what are you receiving back from these people is so crucial to being whole and confident and not carrying shame or guilt or crap from somebody else. So being really intentional and we're talking about sex, but we also mentioned intimacy is everything. And I know Victoria has taken us on this journey that consumption of everything, energetic exchange, intimacy is vulnerability, energetic exchange. So, what are you inputting? What are you giving and receiving in your food, in the way that you cook? Are you angry cooking because you don't want to be doing it? That's the energy you're exchanging with that food. So, being mindful of the intimacy and the pleasure that you can get from the smallest things.
I love that you bring up food because my friends know very well if they go on vacation or if they're making food or baking or whatever, I demand a food porn pic at
Oh,
every
yeah.
occasion, every plate. I need to see it. Can I be a food porn star?
As long as you don't then think that that's what all food needs to look like. No, I'm kidding.
Well, I love that you brought up food because instead of the embodiment practice at the beginning of today's podcast episode, I'm leaving you with an invitation to find intimacy with your food. You
Mm,
know, not everyone's having sex, not everyone has a partner, but we all eat. And if you haven't been cooking, I highly recommend getting intimate with every little detail from the chopping, the banging of the pans as you drag them out of the bottom of the stove, the feeling or the sensation of watching the oil drip onto the pan,
ooh.
putting your hands in and mixing whatever it is that you're making, and of course, the smells.
Mm,
And then the tastes.
mm.
So, taking the next week to get intimate with your food. So, in addition to feeling all of the sensations that go into making a meal, consuming a meal, kind of backtrack before that and start to look at where's your food coming from? Who all is touching that food? Who all is putting their energy into that food? And then consciously putting your hands over that food, either before you start chopping and cooking, and also be mindful of the thoughts you have as you're making your meal. But when the dish is ready and you're about to dig in, take an 11-second pause and put your hands over that dish and charge it with gratitude and love and just the utmost thanks for the nourishment it's going to give your body.
And can I second that homework and say, once you've explored how that intimacy with food makes you feel, start to charge it and share that food with others. And it's so funny because that's exactly what I did today. My partner is the cook, but I woke up early and I made muffins and I made dinner already because he goes to work. And I really charged that with my love for him. And instantly, from the first bite of that muffin, he was like, I could feel how much you love me. And just being able to play with the intimacy that you share with others through things like food is such a beautiful way to connect as well.
I love that. It's so beautiful.
So I think for me, some points to really remember as you're playing with intimacy with your food, with your partners, with eye gazing into yourself is that pleasure comes when we allow ourselves to be intimate with the energy flowing from, in, and through us. To find that yes of exploration that awakens and brings that aliveness into the body, and to find the no of setting boundaries and standing in your truth so that way you make more room for that yes. Because finding intimacy in pleasure is liberation.
Hallelujah. So ultimately, it's important to remember that you are enough just as you are, and that there will be people in your life who will accept you and appreciate you for who you truly are. And by being true to yourself and surrounding yourself with supportive, loving people, you can create a positive and enriching community.
Hmm.
I love you, Tara, and I'm so grateful to share this intimate space of sharing our voices.
I love you too. And I love all of you for joining us and sharing this intimacy because that's what we're doing. And we appreciate you being here.
We love you, listeners. Until next week.
Bye.